kilos are making her way to the ring. Here is another Kazakh fighter, DINA ZHOLAMAN, the #1 seed, 2016 world champion in her home country. I was at that competition. Took place shortly before the Olympic Games. It was the final qualifier.
SITORA SHOGDAROVA.
And in the blue corner, we've got Uzbekistan. This is SITORA SHOGDAROVA. So this is another Kazakhstan versus Uzbekistan battle. As I said, we've got a good number of those, 5 in total throughout the course of these finals. Kazakhstan with 2 gold medals out of 2 from the 2 fights we've seen up until this point. So ZHOLAMAN, Kazakhstan, the #1 seed in red, and Shogdarova of Uzbekistan in blue. Just 20 years old, so 8 years younger than ZHOLAMAN. This is her first Continental Championships as a senior, 2019 national champion. So she doesn't have all that much experience at this kind of level. ZHOLAMAN has a lot more. I mentioned that world title, quarterfinals in the Asian Championships and the World Championships in 2019. ZHOLAMAN, though, squeezed through in her semi-final, needed a bout review against Sakshi of India. Lost 3-2 originally, and they asked for it to be reviewed, the Kazakhstan team. Basically, if you lose 3-2, it has to be 3-2. You can't do it if it's 4-1 or 5-0. You can ask for a bout review. You have to make that request quickly, within 15 minutes, then they'll decide whether they're going to review it. It's not a given that they will. And then if they do, it goes to the jury, and they decided to overturn that one. I felt sorry for Sakshi because it was a really close fight. I watched it, and at the end it could have gone either way. And when you get one that you know could go either way, I think it would have been a fairly bitter pill for her to swallow, Sakshi, to be honest with you, to see that one taken away from her. But that's the way it goes. Top level competition, that's the way it goes sometimes. So we've got ZHOLAMAN there of Kazakhstan in the red in the orthodox stance, Shogdarova of Uzbekistan boxing out of the southpaw stance in the blue, and just banging away to the body there, ZHOLAMAN. The referee just having a word with Shogdarova about trapping the arm on his blind side, but it kind of worked for ZHOLAMAN because with the free arm she just rattled away to the body. She is again there. She'll want to get this up close and personal. Here's ZHOLAMAN. She's that kind of fighter. Gets caught by a jab on the way in, and just looking at these early stages, Alex, that's what Shogdarova's got to do, isn't it? She can't just allow herself to be swarmed by ZHOLAMAN. She's got to try and snap out that jab, catch her on the way in, and give her something to think about.
And it looked like she was managing to do that early on. Shogdarova's managing to keep her at arm's length with that southpaw jab. Her footwork has been pretty good as well. You've got that rare beast, haven't you? You've got an orthodox Kazakh fighter, which so many of them are southpaws. That's a rarity in itself. It's actually the Uzbek fighter who's fighting out of the southpaw stance. I think on balance, what we've seen through the first couple of minutes, that range and southpaw stance seems to be helping him working.
Again, just holding out that lead hand there, Shogdarova, then looking to try and shoot the left straight down the middle. Had it cocked and ready to go there, but didn't launch it. ZHOLAMAN is just a little bit more circumspect now, not quite as eager to rush into the final minute of round 1. You do see a lot of southpaws in top international competition, that is for sure. Just short with that long left hand there, Shogdarova, but didn't really chase it, just brought it back. Yeah, it's almost coming together there as ZHOLAMAN just with a slightly frustrated look on her face there, right at the end of the round. A couple of times she did manage to get close and look to try and work the body with that left hand, and you almost knew, well, we knew from watching them through the course of the week, but when you see these kinds of fighters with the physiques and the statures that they got, Alex, you think you know what you're going to get, and that's turned out to be the case, because for Zholaman, the task is fairly clear, which she needs to try and do, and you could say the same about Shogdarova.
Yeah, and with her, you'd like to think with her experience and pedigree, medals and national championships left, right and centre, that she'll perhaps have a plan B or be able to adapt and find a way. But on what we saw through the first round, it was definitely Shogdarova whose range and technique was managing just to buy her some distance and space, and she was able to keep Zholaman largely at bay and largely keep her quiet. Are we going to see a change in the play? Will the experience of Zholaman start to bear in the second round?
Just come straight in behind her right hand there. Balance wasn't great, but she moved onto the shoulder. Nice left hand there, though, straight left hand from Shogdarova. She's in the blue, boxing for Uzbekistan. Zholaman of Kazakhstan, the #1 seed, is in the red. Referee just having a quick word about holding to the pair of them there. You don't want a point deducted in a 3-round fight. A point deduction can be near fatal, really. Letting go with a long, loose backhand there, a left hand Shogdarova. Again, just didn't quite manage to find the target. You just see that kind of fast twitch movement there from Zholaman, and then just springs in looking to lead off with the left hook. Didn't really land clean. Head movement on the way in, feints are absolutely essential for her. Well, Shogdarova will be able to pick her off on the way. And again, she just kind of throws that long backhand. That is an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because that's a weapon for a southpaw. It's amazing how often that seemingly quite straightforward backhand just seems to bewitch opponents, orthodox opponents, and gets through. But she can be a little bit lazy with it sometimes. It kind of falls in after it. So whilst it's a strength, it's sometimes a little bit of a weakness, and Zholaman doing some good work there.
I think there's a slight change in the play here, Andy, and just a very subtle change in approach from Zholaman. She's just trying to not commit, and she's basically asking Shogdarova to lead off. So she's just holding her feet. She's asking Shogdarova to lead off, then she's looking to make the second press and attack, and I think she's starting to get a little bit of success. So with all her experience, we wondered in between rounds if she in her corner, Alexander Vysotsky is in that corner, whether they'd be able to react, come up with a plan. I think they've managed to do it throughout this second round.
Just having a little bit of a wrestle heading into the third and final minute. Those kinds of clinches can be important, and Zholaman just gets Shogdarova into a headlock there and drags her down a touch. Referee gives her a slight telling off for that, but just managing to impose yourself at close quarters there, although it's not really going to count for anything in the judge's eyes. It can matter. Again, let it go with the left hand there, Shogdarova, and that's kind of what I was talking about. She missed with it. Well, Zholaman made a miss and looked to try and throw her own right. Well, this is set up nicely, you would say, heading into the third and final round. These are two well-matched fighters. Just caught slightly square there again, Shogdarova in no man's land, and when that happens, Zholaman has got the wherewithal to get on top of it. So interesting round that, as you say, I make absolutely right with the comments you made there in the final minute. And when they went back to their corners there, you'd probably rather be in a red corner, wouldn't you, at the minute?
I think that was just it wasn't a huge round for Zholaman, but it was just a subtle change in the play. She wasn't overcommitting. She was just holding her feet, feinting, asking Shogdarova to commit first, and then she was countering herself sharply, and she was working the body pretty well when they got up close too. I think that was a really intelligent change of the play. It wasn't a huge notable round on the cards, but I thought it was enough of a change in the play for Zholaman to set up a really interesting finale now.
So into the third and final round. This is the women's final in the Asian Championships at bantamweight. DINA ZHOLAMAN of Kazakhstan, the #1 seed, she's in the red. SITORA SHOGDAROVA of Uzbekistan is in the blue. Shogdarova, who got past Michidmar of Mongolia by split decision, 4-1 in the semi-final. She's the less experienced of these two by some margin, but she's given a decent account of herself so far. Again, with that long left hand, that one just about did reach that time. Just chipping away to the body on the inside there as well. Shogdarova. Both of them just closing down that space a little bit too quickly. Fencing with that lead hand. She doesn't really jab all that much, Shogdarova, which is a shame when you consider the physical advantages she's got. She uses that lead hand as a rangefinder, really, doesn't she? Rather than snap it out and try and bounce it off the head of ZHOLAMAN and employ it as a real scoring shot. Again, piled in with the left hand, followed it in there. Again, the weight came forward a bit too much, but she went straight onto the shoulder. Bit messy, this final round so far.
Not easy to score, Andy. No, not at all. I thought the start of it was pretty much more of what we'd seen previously. A couple of shots there off the break. I suspect that Shogdarova and plenty more before her have looked at DINA ZHOLAMAN and thought, right, yeah, I know exactly what I've got to do to beat this lady. I think once you get in there, it's a slightly different scenario entirely. She's a bundle of energy. First round, it was perhaps too much without the creativity. There was that change in the play in the second round. Here, it looks like just maybe Shogdarova's starting to get behind one or two of those rangy, distant shots again. Not an easy final round, I think, for the judges to score this one.
It was a nice one too there from Shogdarova, right on cue. She just snapped down the middle, and increasingly she's looking to try and throw that single shot, maybe a couple of punches, and then just move in and smother ZHOLAMAN and close her down. There is not much in this at all heading into the final 30 seconds. Kazakhstan looking for a third consecutive gold medal. We've already seen them at 48 and 51 kilos. Nice combination there though from ZHOLAMAN, and just looking to cover up a little bit there, Shogdarova. And whoever has a good finish here, that could be enough to take it. And both of them just holding on, the referee giving them plenty of time there to try and work it out themselves. But as you've been saying, this final round, not the easiest one in the world to score. I wouldn't really like to say which way that one's going to go. ZHOLAMAN with a little bit of a celebration there in the Kazakhstan corner. Slightly more muted there for Uzbekistan, but it's tight, it's very tight.
It is, Andy. That was very, very close. In the last 30 seconds, the pair of them were basically punching in and around the clinch as well, which makes it even more difficult to score. Will the kind of industry and effort of ZHOLAMAN be rewarded, or when she got her punch picking and distance right, would it be about Shogdarova who's in shot? Very, very tight one. Wouldn't complain either way how this one unfolds.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner by split decision in the red corner representing Kazakhstan.
So ZHOLAMAN gets it by split decision, so that's another gold medal for Kazakhstan, and that is 3 on the bounce. They've got 9 fighters in finals this afternoon, and so far it is 3 out of 3. 2 scores of 29 to 28 and 1 of 30 to 27 there, I do believe, for ZHOLAMAN, as those scores flashed up very quickly. So it was that final round, you would imagine, that was the key there. That was something we saw a lot of, ZHOLAMAN just banging away to the body with that left. You made a good point in that third round, which is when you're in with a here's what I do now, try and stop me fighter, which is what DINA ZHOLAMAN is, that it could turn out to be a little bit more difficult Do you think Shogdarova might have a few regrets about that one, that she could maybe have done a little bit more in that final round particularly?
I think the difficulty is knowing how much it was that you were or weren't able to do yourself, and how much of that actually was about your opponent and how much they were letting you do what you wanted to do. That's always the difficulty in boxing, isn't it? And one of the things I love about the sport is that in between rounds, each fighter and their teams, their corners, they get an opportunity to redress. It's a bit like playing moves in chess, isn't it? And after the end of each round, what might have looked like an attacking position suddenly can be addressed, and it can be turned around. It's one of the beauties about the sport. It's constantly changing in between rounds, and every single break in between rounds, each fighter, each boxer, each corner team